As many will have seen recently, and in particular since the rapid rise in petrol and diesel prices, sales of electric cars are booming, with year-to-date sales in 2022 of battery electric vehicles up to 14.4%. If you add in plug-in hybrids, it's up to 21% in the UK. That's up from just 3.2% just 3 years ago in 2019. In the US, where gas is king, EV sales may be lower, but have still doubled from 2.5% last year to 5.2% this year. In the UK, Amazon has announced trials of 5 electric 27-tonne heavy goods vehicles on medium-distance routes to bolster its 1,000 electric local delivery vans. In 2021, Amazon delivered 45 million parcels in the UK with its electric vans and e-cargo bikes. In the US, Amazon's main market, they have pledged to buy 100,000 electric vans and 2,500 pure electric HGV trucks. So if the world's largest retailer is going electric, then what about the biggest single consumer of fossil fuels, the US military and other militaries around the world? Will they go electric? And if so, what are the challenges ahead? This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Now, if you want to keep a low profile out there on the internet, one of the best ways is to use a virtual private network, or VPN, like NordVPN, which is what I use. A VPN not only hides your computer's real IP address, but it also encrypts everything you send over it, making it ideal for mobile apps because, unlike a web browser, you can't see if a mobile app is using the secure HTTPS protocol. In more recent times, and for some, it's become even more important to hide your true location, and with a VPN, you're just a click away from looking like you're in another country or even on the other side of the world. Nord has features like Auto Connect and Kill Switch, so that should you accidentally forget to start or turn off your VPN, you won't accidentally reveal your true IP address and location, ideal for when you're accessing geographically locked websites and content. Act now and you can get Nord's 2-year deal plus 1 month free extra by using the link in the top of the description below, and there's even a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's risk-free and there's no excuse for not trying it out. After seeing what's happening in Ukraine, most people would be hard-pressed to imagine electrically powered tanks and other heavy military vehicles. In the UK, the biggest issue facing EV drivers is finding a charging station that is working and compatible with your car. Imagine how charging might work in a war zone where the electrical supply has been cut. You'd have to rely upon mobile charging systems that would have to generate the power using, you guessed it, diesel or jet fuel or something similar for turbine-powered generators. That seems like it would defeat the whole object of electric tanks, when you could just put the same diesel directly into a normal combustion engine version of one. But that's exactly what the US and other militaries are looking into. So let's see why they are doing this. Well, firstly, there is the greenhouse gas issue. Climate change, however you look at it, is real and is happening now and threatens everyone. As the US DoD is the largest single user of fossil fuels, it's also the largest emitter of CO2, pumping out 59 million tonnes in 2017, though that was down from a peak of 86 million tonnes in 2004, but that was mostly through military shrinkage. However, the amount of CO2 being pumped out is probably the last thing on the minds of soldiers and the military in the middle of a war zone. The second is the fact that most of the weapon systems, like tanks, have very inefficient engines and huge weights, making their fuel efficiency almost in the gallons per mile range. But to be fair, when they were designed, sometimes decades ago, the price of fuel was much, much lower, and little to no costings were allowed for its transportation. The much lauded M1A2 Abrams tank uses a 1960s design 1500 horsepower gas turbine engine that can propel it around a battlefield at just shy of 30 miles an hour and does about half a mile per gallon. But much like every other tank in a combat situation, 60 to 80% of the time it's sitting with its engine idling at 1% efficiency to run about a 5 kilowatt generator to power mostly air conditioning and electronics, and all the while pumping out heat, making them easy to spot with modern IR cameras. If a consumption at the front end could be reduced, then the much larger logistical operation following them could be reduced, and that would have a much larger impact. For a US Army armoured division with all its vehicles online and moving, it can consume up to 500,000 gallons, or just shy of 1.9 million litres of fuel per day, which becomes a huge security and logistics challenge. Of the gross tonnage moved around by the US Army, 70% of it was fuel, and most of that was shipped over from the US and then distributed to where it was needed. Tanks and things like personnel carriers can only advance as far as they have fuel supplies, and the logistical challenges of keeping them fueled and secure is one of the biggest issues facing the military. The cost of moving fuel by trucks to the front line is far greater than the cost of the fuel used by the actual fighting vehicles themselves, and can increase by as much as 500 times if things like helicopters are needed to do this. The US Army keeps 20,000 active personnel and 40,000 reservists just to move the fuel around. A vehicle with an electric drivetrain powered by batteries or a hybrid system would be far more efficient and produce a fraction of the heat when it's idling or on silent watch. But are we likely to see electric tanks anytime soon? The principle of using an electric drivetrain in a tank is not a new one. Electric motors were used in the prototype tanks going back to the First World War with the US-made Holt gas electric tank. This was the first prototype tank built in the US in a collaboration between Holt Manufacturing, now Caterpillar, and General Electric. It used the chassis from a Holt Model 75 tractor with a 90 horsepower 4-cylinder engine driving a GE generator which powered 2 electric motors, one for each track. However, during testing, it was found to have poor climbing performance compared to the tanks built by the British with all-round tracks, and was much heavier than planned because of the complex propulsion and transmission systems, which pushed it up to 25 tons in weight and slowed its speed to just 5 miles an hour. Only one was built, but development was abandoned after the poor test performance results. The petrol-electric hybrid drive principle was taken up again in World War II by Ferdinand and Porsche with the VK4501P, also known as the Porsche Tiger Ferdinand. This was a heavy tank weighing in at 45 tons and sporting an 88mm main gun. The main power came from twin air-cooled V10 petrol engines, each one driving a 500 kVA generator which in turn powered a 230 kilowatt electric motor, one for each track. However, this was a new and untested design compared to a conventional drive tank, and there were many major issues with its reliability of the air-cooled engines, and it required a frequent amount of maintenance. Its performance was also poor due to the weight distribution, especially over soft ground. The generators also used a lot of copper in their construction, which was in short supply and in competition with the generators which were used in the German U-boats. In the end, the conventional diesel-powered Henschel version of the Tiger was approved for production, though 90 pre-production Porsche Tigers were made, and these were adapted for other uses. Today, there are several hybrid fighting vehicles in development, in particular the Bradley, which is a tracked multi-purpose vehicle capable of carrying troops and acting as a backup for main battle tanks. In January 2022, the US Army demonstrated a hybrid-powered Bradley for the first time, and going forward it will be tested throughout the year. The Army says that its hybrid drive will allow reduced fuel consumption with increased range, the ability to export up to 1100 kilowatts of electrical power with less maintenance and fewer parts. It can also stand on silent watch without the need to have its engine running, so reducing its heat and sound signatures dramatically. So what about going the whole hog and making fully electric fighting vehicles? As we have seen, the electric drivetrain can be done easily, and today's electric motors are much more efficient at 85 to 90% compared to internal combustion engines at just 17 to 21%. But it's the batteries which are the issue, or more accurately, their energy density. The energy density of modern lithium-ion batteries is about 1 megajoule per kilogram compared to diesel fuel, which is 45 megajoules per kilogram. But much of that advantage is lost through the inefficiency of conventional combustion engines. To replace the 1500 horsepower of the gas turbine in the Abrams, you would need a battery capable of delivering 1100 kilowatts, which would weigh around about 1.1 tons. compared to 100 kilograms of kerosene. To run for up to 8 hours, you would need an 8,000 kilowatt hour battery weighing in at more than 8 tons and taking up more space than the fuel tanks. This would then make the tank, which already weighs 72 tons, too heavy to be carried by a C-17 transport plane, which has a maximum payload of 77.5 tons. And once in the field, it might be too heavy for some bridges and struggle on soft ground. But the real killer is the charging of the batteries without access to grid power. Even the fastest 350 kilowatt chargers today, charging 8,000 kilowatt of batteries, would take 22 hours. To charge in 4 hours would need 2 megawatt chargers, and it would still be too long for use on a battlefield. So if electric vehicles are to be used, then they need to be quite a bit smaller, but no less lethal. In 1982, the US Army conducted a little-known experiment in the desert, pitting 30 normal tanks against 30 Baja-style dune buggies armed with precision-guided anti-tank munitions. The result was 27 dead tanks to 3 dead dune buggies, simulated of course, a result which predated what we've seen in Ukraine by 40 years, namely that lightly armed infantry using the latest anti-tank weapons can decimate enemy tanks, and helping them do this in Ukraine are electric bikes. Carrying up to 2 people with armaments, the simple, lightweight and effective battery-powered bikes built by Eleek in Ukraine are enabling snipers and tank hunters to sneak up on their prey, fire and then get out quickly and quietly before the Russian artillery bombard their position. The Eleek Atom has a 5 kilowatt battery and has a speed of up to 90 kilometers an hour and a range of up to 100 kilometers, weighs in at 65 kilograms and takes 4 hours to charge. But there's nothing new in this. In World War I, push bikes were used en masse, and in World War II, the Allies dropped bikes with paratroopers which enabled them to quickly and silently scout ahead of the main battle groups. At least 5 militaries around the world, including Denmark, the United Arab Emirates, New Zealand and Australia, are looking at e-bikes for special forces that can be dropped with paratroopers or attached to larger vehicles, and feature things like removable battery packs and solar charging in the field. The Norwegian army first started to use e-bikes to patrol the Norwegian-Russian border in 2018. But electric vehicles don't have to be driven by a human. Autonomous or remote control fighting vehicles are also being developed. The Ripsaw M5 by Howe Technologies is one such remote-controlled light tank with an electric powertrain that's been evaluated by the US Army and has been seen in many action movies recently. The tank is built with a modular design to be tailored to a wide variety of uses and future-proofing for tasks that are not yet envisaged. It has up to 1600 horsepower electric drive and can use a 30mm cannon and guided anti-tank munitions. Is fast at up to 65 km per hour, creates little or no heat, and is silent apart from the noise of breaking branches and trees as it goes through them. In Army evaluation tests, it was remotely controlled by a modified Bradley fighting vehicle, enabling a sort of loyal wingman type of role seen in robotic aircraft. It was fitted with a Norwegian Protector RT-40 turret and 30mm automatic cannon, plus an M240 machine gun, but different turrets and weapon systems could be fitted as required for the mission profile. This was the first time that a medium caliber weapon was being fired from a fully robotic platform without any onboard humans in live fire trials, and if successful, could be rolled out to a wide range of infantry support and backup roles, being able to go where larger tanks cannot, and when fitted with advanced anti-tank munitions could be a very potent weapons platform. So whilst we may think of electrifying large fighting vehicles as being the way forward, Ukraine has proved what some have thought for a long time, in that some of the most cost-effective electric vehicles from a cost-to-performance perspective are some of the smallest, and there needs to be a major rethink of how conflict in the 21st century will be fought. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then as I have said many times before, please thumbs up, subscribe and share, and a big thank you to all of our patrons out there for their ongoing support.